Good evening everyone, my name is Tarun Gandhi and in this particular video we will be discussing about the biography of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. He was the first Prime Minister of Free India. He was born on 14th November 1889 and was died on 27th May 1964. So stay tuned with us and watch the video till end. Early life. Jawaharlal Nehru was born on 14th November 1989 in Allahabad in British India. His father Motilal Nehru, a wealthy barrister who belonged to the Kashmiri Pandit community. His mother Swarupni Thusu came from a well-known Kashmiri Brahmin family settled in Lahore, was Motilal's second wife, the first having died in childbirth. Jawaharlal Nehru was eldest of three children, two to whom were girls. The elder sister, Vijaya Lakshmi, later became the first female president of the United Nations General Assembly. The youngest sister, Krishna Hotsing, became a noted writer and authored several books on her brother. Education. Jawaharlal Nehru received primary education under the guidance of an English governess. Young Jawaharlal Nehru was taught to converse in English from an early age. He also learned the appropriate customs of the British Raj. The early education of Jawaharlal Nehru played a major role in his political view and economic policies. Later, when he had begun his institutional schoolings in 1905 at Harrow, a leading school in England, he was greatly influenced by G.M. Trevelyan's Garibaldi books, which he had received as prizes for academic merit. He viewed Garibaldi as a revolutionary hero. He wrote, "Visions of similar deeds in India come before, of my gallant fight for India, freedom. And in my mind, India and Italy got strangely mixed together." Nehru went to Trinity College, Cambridge in October 1907 and graduated with an honours degree in natural sciences in 1910. During this period, he also studied politics, economics, history and literature desultorily. Writings of Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells, J.M. Keynes, Bertrand Russell, Lower Dickinson, and Meredith Townsend molded much of his political and economic thinking. After completing his degree in 1910, Nehru went to London and stayed there for 2 years for law studies at the Inns of Court School of Law, Inner Temple. During this time, he continued to study the scholars of the Fabian Society, including Beatrice Webb. He passed his bar examination in 1912 and was admitted to the English bar. After returning to India in August 1912, Nehru enrolled himself as an advocate of the Allahabad High Court and tried to settle down as a barrister. As you can see, there are two images of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. In first image, Nehru dressed in cadet uniform at Harrow School in England, and in second image, Nehru at the Allahabad High Court. Personal life. Nehru married Kamala Cole in 1916. Their only daughter Indira was born a year later in 1907. Kamala gave birth to a boy in November 1924, but he lived only for a week. As you can see, there are three images. In first image, Nehru in 1908 with wife Kamala and daughter Indira. In second image, Indira Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Rajiv Gandhi and Sanjay Gandhi. And in third image, Firoz and Indira's wedding was as per Hindus' rituals. Struggle for Indian independence from 1912 to 1947. Nehru had developed an interest in Indian politics during his time in Britain. Within month of his return to India in 1912, he had attended an annual session of Indian National Congress in Patna. The Congress in 1912 had been the party of moderates and elites. Nehru harbored doubts regarding the ineffectualness of the Congress but agreed to the work for the party in support of the Indian civil rights movement in South Africa. He collected funds for the civil rights campaigns led by Mohandas Gandhi in 1913. Motilal Nehru, a prominent moderate leader, acknowledged the limit of the constitutional agitation but counseled his son that there was no other practical alternative to it. Nehru, however, was not satisfied with the pace of the national movement. He became involved with the aggressive nationalist leaders who were demanding home rule for Indians. The influence of the moderates on Congress politics began to wane after Gokhale died in 1915. Anti-moderate leaders such as Annie Besant and Lokmanya Tilak took the opportunity to call for a national movement for home rule. Home Rule movement. Several nationalist leaders banded together in 1916 under the leadership of Annie Besant to voice a demand for self-government and to obtain the status of a dominion within the British Empire as enjoyed by Australia, Canada, South Africa, New Zealand and Newfoundland at the time. Nehru joined the movement and rose to become a secretary of Besant's All India Home Rule League. In June 1917, Besant was arrested and interned by the British government. The Congress and various other Indian organizations threatened to launch protest if she were not set free. The British government was subsequently forced to release Besant and make significant concessions after a period of intense non-cooperation. The first big national involvement of Nehru came at the onset of the non-cooperation movement in 1920. He led the movement in the United Provinces, now Uttar Pradesh. Nehru was arrested on charge of anti-governmental activities in 1921 and was released a few months later. In the rift that formed within the Congress following the sudden closure of the non-cooperation movement after the Chori Chora incident, Nehru remained loyal to Gandhi and did not join the Swaraj parties formed by Father Motilal Nehru and C.R. Das. Civil disobedience. Nehru and most of the Congress leaders were initially ambivalent about Gandhi's plan to begin civil obedience with a satyagraha aimed at the British salt tax. After the protest gathered steam, they realized the power of the salt as a symbol. Nehru remarked about the unprecedented popular response. It seemed as though a spring had been suddenly released. He was arrested on 14th April 1930 while entering from Allahabad for Raipur. He had earlier, after addressing a huge meeting and leading a vast procession, ceremoniously manufactured some contraband salt. He was charged with breach of the salt law, tried summarily behind prison walls, and sentenced to 6 months of imprisonment. He nominated Gandhi to succeed him as Congress president during his absence in jail. But Gandhi declined, and Nehru then nominated his father as his successor. With Nehru's arrest, the civil disobedience acquired a new tempo, and arrest, firing on crowds, and lathi charges grew to be ordinary occurrences. The Salt Satyagraha succeeded in drawing the attention of the world's Indian British, and world opinion increasingly began to recognize the legitimacy of the claims of the Congress Party for independence. Nehru considered the Salt Satyagraha the high water mark of his association with Gandhi and felt that its lasting importance was in changing the attitudes of the Indians. Of course, these movements exercised tremendous pressure on the British government and shook the government machinery, but the real importance to my mind lay in the effect that they had on our own people and especially the village masses. Non-cooperation dragged them out of the mire and gave them self-respect and self-reliance. They acted courageously and did not submit so easily to unjust operations. Their outlook widened and they began to think a little in terms of India as a whole. It was a remarkable transformation, and the Congress under Gandhiji's leadership must have the credit for it. Declaration of Independence. Nehru was one of the first leaders to demand that the Congress Party should resolve to make a complete and explicit break from all the ties with the British Empire. He introduced a resolution demanding complete national independence in 1927, which was rejected because of Gandhiji's opposition. In 1928, Gandhi agreed to Nehru's demand and proposed a resolution that called for the British to grant dominion status to India within 2 years. If the British failed to meet that deadline, the Congress would call upon the Indians to fight for complete independence. Nehru was one of the leaders who objected to the time given to the British. He passed Gandhiji to demand immediate actions from the British. Gandhi brokered a further compromise by reducing the time given from 2 years to one. Nehru agreed to vote for the new resolution. Nehru drafted the Indian Declaration of Independence, which stated, "We believe that it is the inalienable right of the Indian people as of and any other people to have freedom and to enjoy the fruits of their toil and have the necessity of life so that they may have full opportunities of growth. We believe also that if any government deprives a people of these rights and oppresses them, the people have a further right to alter it or abolish it. The British government in India has not only deprived the Indian people of their freedom but has based itself on the exploitation of the masses and has ruined India economically, politically, culturally, and spiritually. We believe, therefore, that India must sever the British connection and attain a Purn Swaraj or complete independence." At midnight on New Year's Eve 1929, Nehru hosted the tricolor flag of India upon the banks of the Ravi in Lahore. A pledge of independence was read out, which included a readiness to withhold taxes. The massive gathering of the public attending the ceremony was asked if they agreed with it, and the vast majority of the people were witnessed to raise their hands in approval. 172 Indian members of the central and provincial legislature resigned in support of the resolution, and in accordance with Indian public sentiments, the Congress asked the people of India to observe 26th January as Independence Day. The flag of India was hoisted publicly across India by Congress volunteers, Nationalists, and the public. Plans for a mass civil disobedience were also underway. After the Lahore session of Congress in 1929, Nehru gradually emerged as the paramount leader of the Indian independence movement. Gandhi stepped back into a more spiritual role. Although Gandhi did not officially designate Nehru his political heir until 1942, the country as early as the mid-1930s saw in Nehru the natural successor to Gandhiji. Prime Minister of India, 1947 to 1964. Nehru and his colleagues had been released as the British cabinet mission arrived to propose plans for transfer of powers. Once elected, Nehru headed an interim government which was impaired by outbreaks of communal violence and political disorders, and the opposition of the Muslim League led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who were demanding a separate Muslim state of Pakistan. After failed bids to form coalition, Nehru reluctantly supported the partition of India. According to a plan released by the British on 3rd June 1947, he took office as the Prime Minister of India on 15th August and delivered his inaugural address titled Tryst with Destiny. Long years ago, we made a great tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge not wholly or in full measure, but very substantially. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom. A moment comes, which comes but rarely in history, when we step out from the old to the new, when an age ends and when the soul of a nation long suppressed finds utterance. It is fitting that at this solemn moment we take the pledge of dedication to the service of India and her people and to the still largest cause of humanity. Throughout his 17-year leadership, Nehru advocated democratic socialism and secularism and encouraged India's industrialization, beginning with the implementation of the first of his 5-year plan in 1951, which emphasized the importance of increasing agricultural production. He also promoted scientific and technological advancement through the establishment of higher learning and instituted various social reforms, just such as free public education and meals for Indian children, legal rights for women, including the ability to inherit property and divorce their husband, and laws to prohibit discrimination based on caste. In 1955, Nehru was awarded Bharat Ratna, India's highest civilian award. During the Cold War, Nehru adopted a policy of non-alignment in which he professed neutrality but was criticized when he refused to condemn the Soviet invasion of Hungary in 1956 and later requested foreign. And after China invaded India's northern border in 1962, the conflict known as the Sino-Indian War had a deleterious effect on Nehru's health, resulting in his severe stroke in January of 1964 and his death a few months later on May 27. As you can see in this image, Indira and India moms. So this is it for today. Thank you so much for watching and listening. This was the biography of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. We will be coming up with the biography of Indira Gandhi very soon. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and please subscribe to our channel for more videos like this in future. Thank you so much.